We get to worship in so many different ways. Right now, if you take a seat, pull out your notes, we're going to worship through talking about what God has to say to us. We've been in this series called 10 Words for Free People, looking at this fourth word. If you have not gotten to be a part of this, you can go to our Church Center app and look up Rock Springs Church. There's an archive there. You can pick up all the previous episodes, and plus you can get information on other series. Thank you, worship team, for leading us today. And thank you, ushers, for doing an admirable job for the very first time in a long time. Yeah, so may God get the glory for all of that. The prayer and care team are going to be, they'll have a representative out in the lobby if you'd like to talk to them, or if you'd like to get involved in maybe being part of that prayer team or the care team. And then the Rock Springs Men also is there. They can tell you about what goes on, but also if you sign up, you get a free breakfast. So if you figure that all out, yep. Those of you who've been around realize it's free all the time. What we've been saying in this series is you can tell a lot about a person by the laws or the rules that they give, and you can tell a lot about a person by who they give those rules to. And what we've been talking about is the 10 Commandments as we would typically know them. In the original language of the Bible, and it's back there on the shelf, and that is in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, in those books. In the book of Exodus, these would have been known as words, the 10 words. And we've been looking at them, and they're very, very important. We've discovered some incredible things about the God who gave them and who he gave them to, in what order he gave them, why he gave them. I hope that you will dive down deep into those as much as you can. In Exodus 20 is where the 10 Commandments, the 10 words are found. And it says, and God spoke these words, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. So the first word was essentially, I am your one and only God. In fact, I am the one and only God. So you need to put me front and center to your life. Of course, he was talking to a people who he had chosen, a people who he had set free. He did not put this in front of them and say, if you believe this and you do it, then you'll be my people. He said, you are my people. Now I need you to understand I am your one and only, and you need to keep me front and center. He went on to say, goes on in Exodus 20, it says, you shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. The second word is no idols. And it's not idols of other gods. He was making the point, you cannot contain me. You cannot shrink me down to size, so stop trying to manage me. I am unmanageable. Don't try to manage me. Let me manage you. In verse 7, he says, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. The third word is don't misuse my name. Don't leverage my name and the power behind it for your cause and your beliefs. I'm in charge. I am the one and only. I am unmanageable, and I'm just telling you, you are not to use my name. Don't play the God card. That's essentially what he was talking about. Now we're to word number 4. And as I've told a few people as I was getting ready for this message, I'm glad y'all showed up. But even if you hadn't showed up or you hadn't tuned in, this is the message for me. This is the one that I wrestle with the most. This is the one that I have the hardest time, because let me just do a survey. How many of you would consider yourself to be a driven person, as some people might say, a type A person? Would you raise your hand? I know you're ready. Type A people are like, yeah, I will. Put that hand up. How many of you would say, I am not a type A person, and you're going, yes, yeah. Let me ask a more loaded question, and this is a trick question in church. How many of you have control issues? Everybody raise your hand, because otherwise I will do a message on lying, okay? Everybody's got control issues. Today's word is something very, very practical, and it's strange when you consider what he's trying to say to us. And why would he put it at number 4? This is the one and only of the 10 commandments that isn't repeated by Jesus in the New Testament. He upheld it. He actually taught something about it that helps us to understand it, but he didn't repeat it. It's not repeated by the apostles in the New Testament. And I would venture a guess, I would say this is one of the commandments that you have never felt guilty about. Because if you've stolen anything in your youth or otherwise, I hope you had at least a tinge of guilt about that. Taking stuff that doesn't belong to you. If you committed adultery, probably felt a lot of guilt over that. Have you coveted, lied, murdered? Don't know. Just saying, but you probably would feel pretty guilty about any of those. But this one, I would bet you $1 to a donut hole you have never sought counseling for this one. Another strange thing, besides it taking priority over steal and kill and adultery and all the ones that we'll deal with next week. Another strange part, this one has more words attached to it than any of the 10. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery. It's got 4 or 5 words. That's it. Done. Period. Move on. This word has 96 words attached to it. So when you see this one, and hopefully you can see it with new eyes, it may even make you wonder, how did this one even make the cut? Because on the surface, it doesn't seem like it's that big a deal. So after the first 3 words that we've just reviewed, then God says word number 4. And in essence, it's boiled down to this: thou shalt do nothing. And all of us who are type A people are going, oh, you hadn't ought to said that. In other words, thou shalt take a day off. Do we have any farmers and ranchers in our midst? You go, that's funny. Thou shalt do nothing. Thou shalt take a 24-hour period and you do not work. You're looking at the preacher going, do you know how things work? I'm just asking, why would God give this commandment, and why would it be number 4? Because maybe, after we got through all the very serious stuff, might like, oh, P.S., let me tell you about this one. Does this even apply to people who live according to the New Testament and not the Old Testament? We're going to read it. Exodus 20, verse 8 and following. He says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. Let's just deal with it. We don't speak Hebrew, but we have it adopted into English. The word Sabbath is a noun that came from a verb. And what it means in its original form, it means rest. No work. The action form of it is don't work. Go and rest. Sabbath. Or if you've been watching The Chosen, there's even an episode called Shabbat. Same thing. It is a once-a-week observance that God is in charge. Remember I told you a little while ago, give God the first of what you're allowed to earn. Make his kingdom a priority. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. These are the priorities. When you give God the first and best, he also says, give me the first of your week. And you may already be thinking, like I said, I don't know what kind of work you do, but I do have some farmer friends, and I can't do that. Which I would go, well, can't is a strong word. Maybe it's I won't do that. But I'm saying to you, if this is a conversation, I tell you this, I'm just the messenger. It says it for itself. It says you should do this, and you go, but I can't. You don't understand my work. You don't understand my job. You don't understand my schedule. I would say I get it, and I'll explain to you here in a minute my point of view on this and why I wrestle with it. But I want us to, before we get to our deal, let's look at their deal. you have a group of people that's at least 600,000 people, but most scholars would put it more at about 1.2, 1.3 million people. They've been slaves, in which that's a horrible lifestyle, but they had routine. But they worked 24/7, 365. They're suddenly freed. They were trying to scratch out a life, but now they've become nomads. That they had a horrible life, but it was predictable. Now they live in tents. 1.2 million people traipsing through the desert, and there are no mavericks nearby. Listen, you need to put yourself in their sandals. They lived in an age of no refrigeration. Imagine your life with no refrigeration. Everything is hand to mouth. Or you eat a lot of jerky, I guess. That's all. They have a very strong work ethic. And then the God who they can't see, but their messenger, God's messenger is very visible, and he's trustworthy. And he says that God says to them, "Thou shalt do nothing." You're going, yeah, no. No. That's ridiculous, because if we do that, then we could die. Because it's like, no worky, no eaty. And God says, I didn't stutter. I say, take a day off and do not work. He even says, stay in your tent. Do absolutely nothing of productivity like you think you should do. They have this experience with God where he opened up the sea and he's done all these kinds of things, but still, God did make sure that they left Egypt with lots of valuable stuff. Some of the Egyptians actually came along with them, and now, the roles are switched. The Egyptians are working for them. But seriously, 1 million people, no refrigeration, need lots of food, because how much food can you actually carry? Now they're 2 months in, they're starting to run out of the food that they have. You know what? We coined a new phrase in our time, but it was happening back then. They were getting hangry. You can read. Because they told Moses, we'd rather go back to Egypt. We'd rather be slaves. You brought us out here to die. Then, one morning, a strange thing happens, which they've seen a whole string of strange things. But they wake up and they pull back the flap to the tent and they look out, and there's crusty pieces of like stuff. They called it manna. You know what manna means? It means, what is it? It literally means, what is that? Somebody who was like in our time, who eats the wild mushrooms? I don't understand. How do you know which ones are poisonous? Or like, well, Joe ate that one. Don't eat that one. Okay, go. But somebody was hungry enough, brave enough. They stepped out. They broke off a piece of that crusty, what is it? And went, it's pretty good. God had provided this thing that they couldn't explain, and he did it every night while they were asleep. And so for less than 3 months or so, every morning, except on one day of the week, this stuff would appear. Manna would appear on the ground every morning, except that one day a week, every single day. And God told Moses, and Moses, being a good leader, said, God is telling you, he's trying to get you to see, I will provide for you. You've got to trust me on this. So you need to get up off of your blessed assurance on Monday, and you need to go out and you need to get you some of that, because that's what you're going to eat today. And then on Tuesday, after you've had a decent night's rest, you get up and you go back out and you get some more of it. And I know some of you, because the knuckleheads, I see you in the back. You've already got it scoped out that on Wednesday, you're going to go out and beat the system, and you're going to get enough for that day and Thursday so you can sleep in on Thursday. And he's like, nuh-uh, don't you do it. Because God caused the manna to go bad overnight, and it would be infested with worms and maggots the next morning. So it's like, ugh. Just trust me. Come out every morning, get the manna, get enough for that day. Those who tested it, tried it, proved it, don't get more than you need for that day. And so for 90 days or so, people practiced trusting God with the first and best of every day. And then, like I said, you do it 6 days a week, except on that sixth day, you do get to pick up enough for the sixth and the seventh day. Exodus 16 is where all of this is explained, and you can read it for yourself. I'm going to read a quick passage of it right here. Exodus 16, verse 26. He says, 6 days you are to gather it, the manna, what is it? But on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there won't be any. In other words, on that sixth morning, do gather 2 days' worth because it won't spoil. And on the seventh day, you need to have it there because on the seventh day, there won't be any. Verse 27 says, nevertheless, some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather it, but guess what? There wasn't any. Verse 29, bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath, the day of rest, and that is why on the sixth day he gives you the bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where he is. On the seventh day, no one is to go out. And it says there in Exodus 16, so the people rested on the seventh day. Do you see the pattern? I've tried to explain it in all kinds of ways this morning. God was giving them a weekly reminder of their dependence on him. I'm the one and only God. You can't shrink me down to size. Don't use your stuff, my name to leverage your stuff. And you need to depend on me. I'm asking you to learn how to trust me. He's saying, Israel, one of these days, I see things that you don't see yet. One of these days, Israel, you are going to be, you're such a tiny spot, and yet you are going to have such an impact on world history. You're going to have nations. I mean, you will be a nation, but you'll be a nation with armies and cities and crops and influence, and you'll have an economy that people will marvel at. But he's also saying to them, no matter how wise, no matter how successful, no matter how prosperous you become, don't you ever forget. Don't you ever forget that it all started with me, because I am the one who provides for you. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be a nation. And if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a place to go. And I'm just trying to show you at the start of every day, and I'm doing it repeatedly week after week, I am the one who supplies what you need. Hopefully you're starting to pick up on why this one really gets to me. Because I feel like I'm a capable, smart, I will work hard. I know you do too. If it's to be, it's up to me. Back to them, he said, I'm building into your schedule a day of remembrance. So every week you have a day off where you do not work or produce anything. And on that weekly day, that day, every week, you need to remember that your wealth and your success is not because of you. I'm the one who gave you muscles. I'm the one who give you brains to figure stuff out. I'm the one who gives you the resources that you cobble together. It's because of me. I am the faithful God who holds this universe together. And don't you ever stop trusting me on the daily. Long story short, you can read the rest of the rest of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Long story short, God gave them 40 years to practice doing this every day. Every day, every day, every week, every week, every week. And that is the heart of the fourth commandment. That's the fourth word. Even when you have more than enough, don't forget to rest. Don't forget the Sabbath. Don't forget to power down, because the Sabbath, Israel, is a reminder that you are dependent on me. Now, back at the ranch of Exodus 20, when he's giving these words, listen to the detail that he gives. Like I said, 96 words. Exodus 20:10, he said, on that day you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. Or if you grew up reading the King James Version, any aliens within your gate. I don't even understand what that means. But It means any foreigner residing in your towns. In other words, he said, don't look for the loopholes. You're always looking for loopholes because you're a bunch of knuckleheads. You may be thinking, well, what kind of loophole would you do? Well, like I told you, the Jewish people, the tables turned. Some Egyptians came with them, and now the Egyptians are serving them. And those of us who know how to play the system, what you do is, well, I'm Jewish, so I won't do any work. But that guy that works for me, he's an Egyptian. He walks like an Egyptian. He talks like an Egyptian. And I'm the boss of him. So technically, I am not violating the fourth word if I get my Egyptian servant to go and do the work that I feel like needs to get done. Then it gets done. I benefit from it. But I also go, hey, I kept the Sabbath. It's cool. I won't work, but I will rationalize that my animal is doing all the work. I didn't do anything. I've got him so well trained, I just tell him stuff. And God says, listen to me. No games. No games. I mean it. 24 hours off. You need to think about me and don't work. You hear me? I think that's what God said. You hear me? Verse 11, he said, let me draw a sharper focus on it. He said, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. It's just like this, a discussion between them and God. God says, and all includes what? And they go, all. And God says, that's right. And why are we all here having this conversation? Well, God, that's because you made us, you chose us, and then you freed us. And why do you have jobs and the ability to actually work? Well, because you made all of our muscles and our brains, and then you give us raw materials, and you give us the ability. Okay, good, we're tracking. And why do you have food to eat? It's because you made it. And God says, right, I want you to enjoy all of that. I gave all of that to you, everything to enjoy, to leverage, to use so that you can bless the people around you and honor me. But don't you forget that the source is me. And anyway, he goes on to say that not only had God done all that in the original, in Genesis, but he rested on the seventh day, and therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. It is the day of rest. It is 24 hours every week that Israel had to remember. And they were forced to do this. They were required to do this. They could say on their Sabbath day, we could be working. We could be working harder today. And good work and hard work, that's important. We get a lot of stuff done. But we're supposed to prioritize that there's something even more important than good and honest hard work. And that is, we have to keep building it into our schedule, a constant physical trust that God is our provider. Not our job, not us. Him. And God said, you know what? About every seventh day, you're going to feel like you're falling behind a little bit. And any of us who are type A's and very highly motivated, I'm just telling y'all, my Monday is my Sabbath. It is one of the most difficult days of the week for me. Because the church work is always going. I could be doing good work. And God says, hit. Put it down. I'm just telling you, this is very, very real. You're going to feel like you're falling behind. And he said, I'm doing that on purpose so that, in fact, you will trust me. Listen, this is the whole thing, and some of you can go back to sleep. I'll provide 7 days of provision if you will give me 6 days of honest, hard work. But you have to trust me. And just like you said earlier in your mind, that won't work for me. Guess what? They felt the same way. Like I said, that alien within your gate, foreigners residing in your town, it's a clever way of getting other people to do the work for you so that way you can work without working and still look good in the eyes of other people. It's like, well, you're missing the point. The point is shutting down. Step away from the work. Get your hands off the work. It is about waiting. It is about resting. It's so difficult for them. It's so difficult for me. Which some of you, I've said that in 2 or 3 different ways. You're going, you're a preacher. Why do you keep saying that? You only work one day a week. And you only work 2.5 hours on that day. Come follow me. Come follow me around. Seriously, it takes approximately 8 to 10 hours to get ready for a message. And we're trying to launch another ministry in the background. And while I'm not super skilled at it, I just want to keep track. Are we on track with tech stuff? Are we on track with construction stuff? Which I have to give kudos to everyone who's built and solved problems. I'm not saying I'm taking credit for it. It's like somebody's got to pay attention to that. And there are people to be prayed for. And there are people to be met with. And people to be counseled. Like I said, 8 to 10 hours a week of my work is devoted to this 45 minutes to an hour every week. And here's what I feel, is that there's only 3 days between Sundays. I feel, you know what, I look at a calendar and I go, Sunday, 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 Sunday. When is it ever going to end? You got your work pressure. What if nobody buys the stuff that I've got in stock? What if the crops don't come in because we had 80-degree weather that got all the wheat to sprout and then the frost came and it took it all away? What if those lesson plans don't get done? We all face the pressure. But for me, I have chosen to practice the principle of the Sabbath, 1 24-hour period every week. And let me tell you, it doesn't have to be the same day. The day of the week was not the point. And besides that, we like to think, because we're Protestants and we think of this like it's Sunday. No, it's actually Saturday. It's from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, if you're getting technical. The time of it, but I've chosen to practice this principle in which I shut down from the work that God has called me to, and it's whether I'm finished or not. And what that does is it drives me to pray, Lord, if it's to be, it's not up to me, it's up to thee. I'm not capable. My shoulders are not broad enough to carry it. I've worked as hard as I can. Which if you know me, especially whenever about the things I care about, I'm always swinging for the fences. I don't want us to do a lousy job. Excellence honors God and blesses people. I think hard work is a good thing. But I also have to keep going. God, I did everything I could. And there were unexpected things that came up. And I don't know what I was supposed to do about that. But if it's going to be ready, you're going to have to do something. So I'm going to trust you for 7 days of provision for the 6 days of work that I have put in. And I will say, God is so big, so mighty, so strong. That's no big deal for him. He holds the whole universe together. But it's a huge challenge for me. And if I'm guessing, it's probably a huge challenge for you. Because I believe that most honest people will hear a message like this and go, yeah, but... So there's a lot of yeah buts in here right now. To which I would say, yeah, but this commandment was not given to preachers. This commandment was given to farmers and shepherds and technicians and artists and engineers and people who were trying to hold it together. Just people like you and me, before an economy had even formed, before people had even thought about this. I will also say this, you can go and check it out historically. This command is so different from any culture that had existed up to that point, and it certainly was not what was happening in the cultures that surrounded Israel. It's radical. Same thing for us. We live in a 24/7, 365 world. There is no disconnection anymore. So this one's tough. I think if you're going to be honest to God, this one is tough. But we've got to get intentional. You got to get creative. God, I'm going to honor you with these 24 hours, and I'm going to, if you're going to have, if this is going to happen, you're going to have to do it. Because I don't see how I'm going to be able to squeeze 7 days of provision out of 6 days of work. And that's where God says, it's not your business to squeeze that seventh day out. That's my job. That's the point of the Sabbath. That's what it means to learn to trust God. Because remember, church, we wouldn't have anything if it were not for him. So let the Sabbath be a reminder to trust him completely. I want to give you a challenge, and I've still got a little bit more to go, so don't tune me out just because we fill in the blanks, all right? Here's the challenge. For 1 month, and how convenient we're starting with May, beginning of May. For 1 month, I will take 1 day every week. For 1 month, I will take 1 day every week to do what? To declare my dependence on God. 1 month, I'll take 1 day every week to declare my dependence on God by taking that day to rest. Not to get the other things done that you didn't get done during the week, but to intentionally rest before God. Pick whatever 24-hour period works for you. Whatever's easiest for you, and then shut it down. Be radical. Go countercultural. Do not let yourself be enticed by any loophole that you could come up with. Just, you go, that's impractical. I can't do that. It's like, well, you can. The question is, will you? You say, well, my job just doesn't work that way. I know how that feels, but let me give you an example. A few decades ago, and some of you know the backstory on this, but don't give it away before the punchline. A few decades ago, there was a guy by the name of Truett Cathy who said, you know what? You talk about a 24/7, 365 industry, that is food service. What we're going to do with my restaurant and my franchises of my restaurant is what we're going to do? We're going to close on Sunday. Some of you are already picking up what I'm laying down here. And the people told him, it's like, Truett, you're going to close down on the very day where people who've gone to church and heard somebody talk to them for way too long and they're really hungry and they're going to drive by your restaurant and you're going to be closed. You're going to miss out on so much revenue. He's like, well, whatever. We're going to shut it down. People said, you do that, it's going to kill your business. He did it anyway. And today, all across America, people are driving by Chick-fil-A going, man, I wish I could eat there today. And you can't. Think of the hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars of revenue they have lost. Well, that's funny. They're the largest chicken outlet in the whole world. Is revenue important? If you're in business, it's absolutely important, yes. But Truett said dependence on God is more important than revenue. It's a tough call, whatever yours looks like. It's not a guarantee just because I told you that story and it was in the middle of a message that whatever work you give this up to, that your business is just going to blow up. But I do dare you to trust God and try to work this out and trust God and see what happens. Now, this is where, and somebody got ahead of me yesterday, but we're going to give him some grace today. There are going to be some days that are exceptions. God even has that in the rest of the law. There are going to be some exceptions in which, as the Old Testament would call it, or even the New Testament, it says if your ox falls into a well or your ox falls into a ditch, you don't have any choice. You've got to work and go get all the contraptions to get the dumb animal out of the ditch or out of the well. There aren't any other options. But I will tell you, if you have an ox that keeps falling in the ditch or into the well and you keep going, this is an exception, I got to go to work. So your ox keeps falling in the ditch, I'm telling you, I think it's time for a barbecue. Time to kill that ox and get a new one. Y'all tracking with me? Okay. Because I'm saying, I dare you to trust God for 7 days of provision based on 6 days of effort. Now, I could just go through all kinds of what we do for a living. If you're a stay-at-home mom, this really doesn't work for you because the rest of the world will fall apart, literally. That's not euphemism. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. You might not can take that day off, but it would feel really, really good. You'd think it was pretty great if your husband did, wouldn't you? How would that impact things at home? Because you'd grow closer together. Absolutely. I'm just saying, I think we ought to be also very much in love with a God who says, thou shalt take a day off. And I mean it. Because that God loves you. You can tell a lot about a person by the laws or rules they give, and you can also tell a lot about a God who he gives his rules to. And that's why he says, trust me like this. It won't be easy. You'll feel the pull. This is not in my notes, but all day yesterday and this morning, this is all can be all informational. I want it to be transformational. I asked you at the beginning, how many of you type A and driven and all that kind of stuff? We're all that way to some degree or another. And we want to do things our own way. What the 10 words really come back to is who's going to be in charge. I have had my life shaped by God's word and by songs. And whenever I hear them, it just unlocks stuff inside of me. I'm not going to sing for you today. But I got a couple of lyrics that I want you to hear. It's poetry. Poetry drives home a point. Take all these pieces, put them like pearls on a string. This isn't just stuff. This is a God who loves you. And he's bumping up right against you going, I know the gravity of your depravity. I know the pull that you feel. But you've got to trust me on this one. So the first lyric is this. The song is called The Call of the Wild. He was 21 when he got married. His son was born when he was 23. He watched his reckless days of youth turn to years of responsibility. His world became routine and he got restless. The family ties that bind just tied him down. He felt his life was passing him by. He felt like his dreams were crashing to the ground. And the grass was always greener beyond the limits of that simple town. And because he wanted a life of adventure, he left behind a wife and a child. They begged him to stay, but he threw it all away because he answered the call of the wild. He lived it up out there in Arizona, and he got rowdy down in Tennessee. Making up for lost time, crossing the line now that he was free. But when the dust finally settled, he saw just how alone a man can be. But he wanted a life of adventure, so he left behind a wife and a child. But the freedom he loved, he was now a prisoner of, since he answered the call of the wild. But somewhere in the darkness, he began to see the light. He wondered what his chances might be to make things right. So he went running back to where he came from in hopes he'd be received like the prodigal son. But in the place he once called home, he found it was no longer home to anyone. And in a house cold and empty, through tears, he cried, "My God, what have I done?" But he wanted that life of adventure. So he left behind a wife and a child. They begged him to stay, but he threw it all away because he answered the call of the wild. I believe that God will hear your prayer no matter where you are. But just be very, very aware of the choices we make about God going to be the only one. Will we submit to let him manage us? Will we live under his name? And will we allow him to be the one who calls the shots? Because he is our source. But here's another song from the great theologian Cody Johnson. This is off a recent album. He said, I used to run just like a Mustang with my head down in the wind at a pace too fast to recognize the places that I've been. Living up my years of freedom, like the words to a song, I found myself believing that I can make it on my own. Till I wound up on my knees one night on the side of the road where I cried and said, I'm willing to go where you need me to go. I was finally tired of running wild across those lonely plains. I surrendered all I had and I let the master take my reins. Now who's to say the Mustang won't be better off this way, having someone he can count on so he don't go astray. He don't sleep with one eye open because he's found peace within the bounds. And I've found a life like this is every bit worth settling down. And then the payoff for this song is because I'm free. I'm not scared and I'm not running. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Yes, I'm free. I know from over there it might look like captivity, but on this side of the fence, I am free. I wanted to connect with your head, and I want to connect with your heart today, church. Take my challenge. See what God can do. We're going to wrap this service up, but right now I'm going to pray. Heavenly Father, these are tough things to talk about. Because so much in us when we get strong is that we want to take over. And our strength is not for us. Our strength is for you and for being your representative in this world. So, Lord, take these feeble words that I've tried to cobble together. Make them make sense, please. And then would you allow them to land in hearts and minds right now about what we're supposed to do with them. Teach us how to surrender. Keep being merciful and gracious toward us, Lord, because without you, we are nothing. Lord, I'm asking you to do a great work in people's lives today. By extension, would you bless our families, our community, and our world? But in the end, you're going to get all the applause because you are not only a gracious God, you are a precious, loving Heavenly Father. So, Lord, keep us in this moment for just a little bit longer so we can see you for who you really are. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.